Just have a special announcement for my listeners. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for listening. Started off as an experiment in August, but I've had about 2,000 listens of my podcasts, and I'm so grateful. I have a special request for my year-end episode 2020, which has been an incredibly interesting year. I plan to do an episode of listener feedback. So what I'd love for you to do is leave me a message, and the link is in the show note, about what you took away. What was one thing after listening to several episodes was the most impactful to you, that helped you in some way, or was an insight you hadn't thought about before? If you can do that, then I will be sharing some of those insights. You can see that link in show notes. Enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Navigating Disruption podcast. I'm your host, Shaquille Barmel. I'm the CEO of Ocean Blue Strategic and partner with the Summit Group. I'm a coach, consultant, and speaker, and I help leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals make an impact through improved performance. In this podcast, I share insights and interviews with interesting leaders to define practical lessons that you can use to make an impact in the face of uncertainty. After my interview with Dr. Jody Anderson in the episode Journey to Purpose, she asked me if she could interview me to get the story about how I found my purpose. So in this interview, the tables have been turned. Jody asks me the questions, and I describe my journey from the year 2000 to 2020 as I have sought to define my reason for being. I'll be honest, I do feel a bit vulnerable putting this out there, but then how can I expect others to share with me so openly if I am not willing to share myself? At the end of this episode, we had a great conversation about the mechanics of finding purpose, which you might find helpful if you are interested in defining your purpose. Enjoy the conversation. Jody, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Really good. Well, you're the first person that's asked to flip the tables and ask me a bunch of questions. Yeah. I don't know what you're going to ask me, and I don't know what I'm going to say.
Walk me through what's happened for you since you left MBA school.
Okay. So I came to MBA school to go to management consulting. That was the objective. I really want to do customer-centric strategy work. I got exposed to Mercer, and that's all they did. Their whole focus was customer-centered business design. And I thought, oh, that's too hard for me to pass up. I took a job with them. I had a really awesome experience working with them. In consulting, lots of travel. And so while it was really great, it was hard to balance family. And, it was really hard for Marissa because we had 2 young children, not a lot of family support in Toronto. So it was probably four years in when I finally got to a good place at Mercer where I was going to develop business with Purelator, follow-on business, and it would be my track to partnership. But they called me in staffing and said, "Oh, we're going to send you to Chicago to do this project in this airline industry." And I was like, well, I'm so close to selling this thing here, and we just had our second child, and I really want to be around. And the answer was a polite, "No, I'm sorry. It's not sorry, you haven't sold that work yet, and people are requesting you here." And so I had no choice but to say yes. But I tried to do some backdoor lobbying with powers that be in the organization to get me off. Didn't work. And then, gosh, my life is full of these fateful events. And this is what makes my faith strong is 2 weeks later, my client from Purelator calls me and says, "Look, I want to create this new function, and you'd be the right guy for it." And basically, it's executing the strategy that you built, like executing in the organization. And so it's sales effectiveness, customer focus, all that. And it was too much. I couldn't pass it up. So I basically called up my boss and I said, "Here's what's happening." Purelator was his client, actually. And he tried to discourage me, and he said, "But I understand." And so I took it. and I left. And it was so gratifying to get the call from that woman that wouldn't let me off that project to say, I'm really sorry it worked out that way. And for me to say, well, I gave you the option. Like I told you what was at stake for me, but you couldn't. So here's what's happened. And I still have a good relationship with the company and I'm very happy and I'm loyal and all that stuff, but that's my life is. So I joined Purelator and I shifted from consulting to industry. I really loved it. I had a playground. I got to try so many different things. I got to create a new department. And then at one point they said, oh, we want to put you in charge of this IT project. I was like, not for me. And they were, again, positioning it like you don't have a choice. This is what we're going to do. And I did a couple of little backdoor conversations and it's kind of getting the message that this is a deal breaker. It's a career move. Like if you say no to this, my boss comes in and says, hey, I just got promoted. I'm going to position you to take my job, which is, oh, that's good news. If that can happen, then I don't have to do this IT thing. Yeah. But then what happened was my mom passed away suddenly.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
You know, it's been now a number of years, right? 13 years. And in that time, when Narissa and I were flying back to Vancouver for the funeral, I said to her, I said, I think it's time to move back to Vancouver. Mm-hmm. And like I was on the verge of a promotion, but I felt it was right to move back to Vancouver. And so I told my dad, I'm going to find a way to move back to Vancouver. And came back, told my boss that, look, I'm not telling you I'm leaving, but this is what's happened in my life. And I might start looking around in Vancouver. But, he comes to me and said, well, there's a secret project starting up a new division and the CEO's worried it's not going to happen. And we've already invested a bunch of money and your name came up. I think you could do it. And it's in Vancouver. It's like, how does stuff like that happen, right?
But it sounds like you've done such good work at being really authentic and transparent to say, like, my heart is in Vancouver and I am looking to find a way there. And so people have that on their radar and they're looking out for you as well. And so that's fantastic. So then what?
So we moved back to Vancouver, was there for my dad. And then we're there and two things happen. My dad gets diagnosed with cancer and her dad gets really sick and she was there to spend time with him. And he eventually passed away. And you realize that you sometimes don't know, but that decision to move back, riding the plane, I wanted to move back to be close to my dad because, my mom just passed away. Feels like the actual real reason was that so Narissa could be there with her dad, spend time with him to care for him. And she was there for that. And she wouldn't have been had we lived in Toronto. So again, interesting how the world kind of powers kind of work. And then a few months later, 2008 financial crisis, supply chains go crazy, business goes crazy. The company calls me and says, you've done great work here, starting this business. How would you feel about moving back to Toronto? And remember, my dad had been diagnosed. So I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. But at the same time, I'm saying it's a financial crisis. Hang on. So if I say no, what happens next? Right? He goes, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry. It's fine. I didn't think you'd say yes. It's okay. I think they're going to let me go. I think that they can't make it work. I think the reason they want to move back is they're going to consolidate my division with another division and they want me to move back. And if I don't, then they're going to give it to somebody else. And so I sent my boss a note and I said, look, I've been reflecting. My boss says, oh, listen, don't worry about it. I'm coming to town on Tuesday anyway, and we can talk about it then. He's coming to town on Tuesday all of a sudden. So yeah, we met 8:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, and he said, it's time to call it a day. So in some ways I was expecting it, in some way it was shock, but it was such an abrupt end to what was a successful kind of run. it actually hit me quite hard, to be honest with you, because I went
Yeah.
from kind of being successful, up and coming business leader, just launched a really great new division for the company, to literally, it's time to call it a day. So it was hard to take. I was a little bit bitter, but it's extremely humbling, right? It taught me that no matter how good you think you are, no matter how valuable you think you are, um, there's always another perspective. And so it was very humbling for me to go through that, and I was very grateful to have that experience, to go through that. I did hit a little bit of a emotional bottom, because it was like, nobody's ever told me I'm not good enough before. But I'm glad I went through it. And then going through that process, I discovered my purpose. I discovered my purpose to, I went through, some coaching and some assessments, and I realized a really good, direct, candid coach basically said, you can continue to go through your career running businesses and seeking that CEO level position, because that's what people like you do. But the real honest truth is, if you do that, you're doing it for the title and for the status, but deep down, that's not who you are. And I was like, oh, wow, that was because that was the aspiration, right? To become a CEO of a company. And she said, actually, deep down, as I look at everything, you're a teacher, mentor, or coach. So you can do that other stuff and you'll be very successful being a business leader, and you can look for a C-level position, but deep down, this is who you are.
And what did you think of that?
It
Because I
felt
mean,
right. The minute she said it, it felt right. And I thought she was right, because I was started reflecting on my entire history, like not all in that moment, but I started unwinding over the course of several days, reading the assessment report, and I realized that every single opportunity, whether it be a volunteer opportunity in high school, or other things in university and on, like that's always what I tried to do. And I always thought that was part of being the leader. I thought part of being the leader was being the teacher, mentor, and coach. It never occurred to me that you could actually decouple the two. And so again, signals you put out into the world. Once I kind of said that would be really cool, I then got a call. I remember I was picking my son up from school, and I got a call from a guy that ran a training organization. He called me and said, you delivered this keynote at this big event. And I said, in that moment, he said to me, you are the right fit for our organization. You should be a teacher and a coach. And I've just bought this company now, and I'm not making this offer to other people, but if you're interested, I'll give you all of Canada to see if you can build a training organization. So I kind of had this running a business. I got to be the president of this new business, and it was a teaching organization. It was teaching, coaching organization. And I was like, how does that happen? Right. And so I did that, and I built an organization. It was very good, enjoyed it, loved the work, but I was traveling again. Kids were older now, but I was still missing out. And starting to feel a little bit of guilt, because my business was successful. I was doing cool things. I was in Berlin and Dubai and doing all sorts of cool things with neat companies. But my kids I was getting disconnected from my kids. I could feel it. And I was starting to feel like the I guess the third wheel in the house a little bit. And I was also feeling like I wasn't doing enough good for the world. And so I went to Ottawa for a client engagement. And in Ottawa, there's an organization where my cousin was the chief operating officer, the Aga Khan Foundation Development Network, doing amazing things all over the world, like alleviating poverty, improving livelihoods, and doing some incredible work in tough places, Afghanistan, Africa, India. And so I was there at his offices, and he was talking about what he's doing. And I was like, wow, that's pretty incredible that you get to do that for a living. In my head, I thought, I got to find a way to be part of this. And so months went by, and I ended up going to his father-in-law's funeral in Calgary. And I met him at the kind of reception after the funeral, and I told him about all I've been thinking about, and he said, it's funny that you're saying that. I was starting to think about ways to involve you. And I said, oh, well, I have an idea. I can design a coaching training program for your volunteer leaders to help them kind of be more relevant to their volunteers, to teach them how to be relevant to donors. And if you're interested, I can do something like that based on the work I do. And he goes, it just so happens next month we have this thing. It's in Vancouver. So if you want to do it, you can do it. And I said, I'm in. So I was starting to satisfy that need to matter. And so I built this program. I delivered the program. It went really well. And that was it. That was done. They sent me a lovely gift, and that was it. And then a few months later, I just got back from somewhere in the world. I was sleeping in the guest room because I came in the middle of the night, and the phone rings. It's him, and he goes, "Hey, I just called to tell you that I've accepted a new job as the head of this other organization." "Oh, congratulations! That's great news. If you don't mind, I just got back, and can I give you a call later?" He goes, "Oh, wait, I'm not just calling to give you news. I want to talk to you about a job." And I said, "What?" And I said, I got up really quick, right? I woke up and I said, "Okay, just give me a moment. Let me call you back." So I got up, called him back, and he said, "Look, we've already got our short list. We've already done all that stuff. But a thought crossed my mind and the CEO's mind, and we just wondered if it's something you'd be interested in doing. And I'm pretty sure you won't be, but I can't not ask you." And so I validated. I said, "Yeah, I'm not interested. I'm happy with my business, and I'm really loving the idea of volunteering for you. I'd be very happy to continue down that path." And he goes, "Well, look, why don't you think about it? 2 or 3 days. Let me know if you want to learn more. And if you don't, it's fine." So I did go up and I told Narissa, and she was like she didn't say no. And I said, "Hang on a second." She said, "You think I should learn more?" She goes, "Yeah, learn more." Which is shocking because the last thing I thought you wanted to do was move to Ottawa after settling in Vancouver again. So that was kind of part one of the equation. Now, it just so happened that call I got was 2 days before I was satisfying another desire of mine to go back to Africa, where both Narissa and I are from. We left as children to take our kids back to show them. So I was a no. But then I guess we did a connection in Dubai, and I said, you know what? I shouldn't be so closed. I should keep an open mind. I should learn more. So I sent a text it was from the connection in Frankfurt that, sure, let's have a conversation. By the time we got to Dubai, I got a message back from the CEO saying, "Fantastic. Is there any way you can stop by Ottawa on your flight back?" And I was like, oh man, this is moving way too fast. I didn't answer the message, but then I went to Africa. And when I went to Africa, you look at everything with a different lens, right? So now I'm going on, I'm doing the tourist stuff, but along the way, I'm seeing the way people are living. And I got tours from locals in Zanzibar, for example. And the tour he gave me, he described a project that Aga Khan Foundation did in Zanzibar that changed the game for local entrepreneurs and stimulated livelihoods and created jobs and all of this stuff.
You're like, are you in cahoots with these?
Yeah, exactly. And then the hotel I was staying at was the Serena Hotel, owned by the same organization because they do a lot of stuff in Africa to create livelihoods and jobs. So they own a hotel chain. And so my cousin called the general manager of that hotel and kind of asked him to give me a really good experience and and actually in the process talk to me about the economic development side of the institutions, the business side of it. So I'm getting this kind of sell, and then Narissa's aunt, who lives in Nairobi, as we're leaving, she gives me the CD-ROM of speeches of His Highness the Aga Khan. And so I just put the CD away and all of that. And then I go back, I do go to Ottawa, have a conversation with them. And I go from there's no way I'm going to do this job to how can I say no to this? The CEO was brilliant. The organization was incredible. The building was phenomenal. And so I then went back to Vancouver and I said to Nerissa, I want this job, but I don't want this job. Like I want to do it, but I don't know how we can give up all the great stuff we have, the great job we have. We're in Vancouver, we're with our family. So I said, let's just keep going through the process. They'll say no eventually. They'll say no eventually. And so I went through the process after several months and we came time to decision time. I was on a flight to Berlin and I pop in the CD. I found it. I pop in the CD and the first speech is His Highness delivering a speech at the grand opening of the building that Aga Khan Foundation is in Ottawa. Prime Minister was there, and he was basically talking about the vision of the institution to create a place within Canada where Canadian values and the values of our organization can be combined to change life for people in the most difficult parts of the world. And I heard that, and we went back and talked to the family and eventually made the decision. So then I ended up in Ottawa, and this is how I'm here. That was a long story. I don't know how
That's
long
great.
I talked for. That was a long story. I got to speak to volunteers, the most generous, wonderful, intelligent people, both staff and volunteers I've ever come across in my life, all trying to do good for the world. Like these are people that work there that if they had it in them, they'd be making hundreds of thousands of dollars working in industry, but they're choosing to be doing this kind of work. And so just working with those people was just incredible, and working with volunteers that worked as hard doing the volunteer work as they did in their own jobs. So it was quite inspiring, and I get to be teacher, mentor, and coach. Most of the people I was dealing with were saying, you are so lucky to get to do that for a living. After about, I guess, 4 or 5 years of doing the things I wanted to do, I realized the purpose is not about the what you're doing, it's about the way you do it and being aligned to your talents and your true kind of inner desires on how you want to help people. And so I did a bunch of soul searching and discovery and became a certified coach and got trained, but some really wonderful people helped me along the way, advising me and coaching me. And here I am.
And so what are you doing now exactly? And how long have you been doing this?
I'm partly a leadership coach. So I work with leaders, particularly during these times of uncertainty, but I was doing this before the pandemic. But, recognizing that there's been disruption in the world for years, right? And from what I've studied and experienced, our education system and the way we're kind of raising young people to be leaders is not preparing leaders for the type of disruption that we have in the environment. And so I've now learned this term, which has been very helpful to me, is leaders need to be both Hercules and Buddha at the same time, right? They need to be courageous, bold, accountable, be able to take risks, have strong business acumen, but at the same time, they have to be in touch with themselves, reflect, self-aware, empathetic, caring. And so it's a tall order for leaders, but that's the standard now. And so my whole coaching practice is to work with leaders that aspire to be that, to balance both courage and empathy, if you will, in simple terms. So that's my leadership coaching practice. I'm very lucky to find the program at Ivy Business School, because that's essentially what they've been trying to build in the Ivy Academy, is a small group of people trying to create this new set of services around coaching leaders to lead through transformation. And so I found a real home in that group. And so I am kind of executing that partly through Ivy and part of that community as they're building that model. And then I also went back to the company I was working with before I joined the foundation, around it basically is a sales sales training organization, but I'm working with them to build kind of a leadership development and coaching practice. I've kind of landed in this place that says, you know, if you're doing sales training, I think there's no other profession in the world that has the potential for adding way more value than the world gives them credit for. So people think of salespeople in this term, you know, basically they're just in it for themselves to make a commission, right? But if you think about the number of organizations a salesperson touches, particularly a B2B salesperson, the number of organizations they touch, the number of people they interact with, because they're responsible for talking to everybody and kind of building their territory, is what if you equip those people with the Hercules and Buddha skills? What if, as they're engaging with their customers, they're becoming counselors and advisors and have those coaching skills to help their customers be successful in whatever it is they're trying to do professionally, but also personally? What if we could turn salespeople into actual coaches?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of my next vision and my passion, to work with them to kind of help them do that with their clients.
Oh, great.
That's what I'm doing. That's the experiment. And this is the podcast, and I get to catch up with people, and so that's what I'm doing.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And with the Ivy network thing,
Yeah.
what are you doing through that?
Yeah. So I'm a certified coach with them.
Yeah.
And part of the program, there's about 13 or 14 of us that are active that are also coaches. Most of them have been coaches like for years. I'm one of the people that hasn't been an official coach for years. And so at the most basic level, we partner to integrate coaching into their executive education.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, we just did a program with IBM where they've got a instructional kind of case-based program with their up and coming leaders, but we integrate 360 assessments and coaching into that so that the leaders get the kind of case-based education, but they also get a bit of self-discovery and learning. So it is back to that Hercules, learning the technical aspects of solving business problems, but at the same time, the Buddha self-reflecting on areas of personal growth and what things they have to work on to be a better leader in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So in the most simplest term, I'm a coach as part of that process.
Okay.
I also have been trying to influence what they could do with the overall business.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm helping them think through and architect a few things as well, to actually be much more relevant and add value to Canadian leaders, business leaders.
And I want to ask you a bit more about your purpose. And I'm fascinated by purpose, and I know that was actually a huge part of how I made my transition, was actually articulating my purpose.
Yeah.
After and certainly it was a lot of soul searching and conversations, and you know, you pick up these books on it, and it's sort of like by chapter 2 it's like, okay, now write your purpose. I'm like, what, are you kidding me? That's not how it works. if only.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, you mentioned it sounds like you had that really pivotal conversation around identifying, seeing in you being a teacher, mentor, coach. Yeah. Have you articulated your purpose into a purpose statement?
I have, actually.
And would you feel comfortable sharing that with me?
Yeah, so I'll have to try. I don't have the word for word memory, but I'll give you the conversation that led me to this purpose. So I was actually part of the coaching program at Ivy at the time. I was learning it. And we did this little activity, and I was fortunate enough to be paired with a very seasoned coach who's become a very good friend now of mine. And we were going through this exercise where we had to identify our energy drainers, our energy boosters, the behavior we dislike in others, and then what were our talents. And we did an assessment to get to this, and then we had to do some of our own reflective work. And we basically had to go through this exercise of linking our needs with the things that drain our energy, and our talents with how can we take control of those things. 2, define your purpose. It was the whole exercise was about understanding yourself enough and your talents and your needs and what you don't like and what you like in order to define your purpose. So I went through a structured exercise, which now I coach people on how to do.
Okay.
And I was in this conversation just on defining purpose. And David, who is my colleague, classmate, as he was asking me, I was coming with a lot of technical, jargony kind of BS. Lots of it's coming up with lots of fancy words. And he was like, very valuable to have skeptical people in your life that will call you on your BS. He called me on it. He was calling me on it. But essentially what I was doing as I was describing it, I was basically saying, I was trying to say something along the lines of, helping people achieve their full potential to be a better, stronger leader and make an impact and all this stuff. And as I was describing that, and as he was being cynical about the words I was saying, he was watching the way my hands were moving. And he said, have you noticed that when you do this, that you're actually, doing this with your hands? What are you doing there? And I thought about it, and what I was doing is I was imagining a ripple in the water. And so that was a very clarifying moment when he asked me that question, because then I realized what my purpose is to try to be the drop that creates the impact in the people, in the organizations, in the communities around me. And so that is my purpose, to work with people to help them be as impactful as possible, to help them create ripples, and to actually help them be drops in other people's water to create ripples. And so that's what I've defined as my purpose. I'd like to be either I haven't nailed down whether I'm the pebble or a drop. it doesn't matter, but it's the creator of the ripple.
And you talk about the ripple, and have you an impact, and have you articulated the kind of impact?
Yeah. So in starting my business, I spent a lot of time like just writing a lot of what my intent was. When you think of calm waters, you put a drop in calm waters, it creates a ripple, but the waters are not usually very calm, right? So the kind of impact that I'm choosing to make is to help people that are trying to lead other people to do incredible things in the world, but doing that under conditions of extreme volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. So the type of impact I'm trying to have is helping. It doesn't matter what the person is trying to do. Of course, it has to be good. It has to be good in the world, but it can be in business, or it can be nonprofit, or it could be volunteer. Whatever that person's goal is, whatever that person is trying to accomplish through other people, my job is to help them achieve it. And so, for example, it would be a leader that's leading a team of people where they've got some people that are thriving during this time, and there's some people that are struggling. So as a leader, how do you balance your team? Because your team wants to make an impact, you want to make an impact, but right now people are stuck. Some are stuck, some are not. I will work with those leaders to actually help people get unstuck, help themselves get unstuck, and help the people. But ultimately, it's to lead their team to make whatever impact they're trying to make in their work and their lives.
Have you heard of a book called The Great Work of Your Life?
No, I'll write it down.
The Great Work of Your Life, a guide for the journey of your true calling. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it. You should see my copy is like, I have tabs on practically every chapter.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Amazing.
Yeah. And anyways, I think it's fantastic. And so for me, I ended up through that course of time working with Leslie Lumsden, who I don't know if she's still at Ivy.
Yeah, she was at Ivy. I remember her. Yeah.
She was the career coach that I connected with.
Excellent.
I ended up articulating my life purpose through like so many of these conversations, and I structured it very much in the format of like, what is the impact that I want to make, like a kind of a verb,
Yeah.
and then the target audience and and the what.
Yeah.
So for mine, it's to evoke hope in those who are most vulnerable by sharing my knowledge, care, and concern.
Oh, I love it.
And so it was
Love
really from that jumping off point that I actually looked at what careers would fulfill that purpose.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
And then it felt like it was fairly easy to sort of like, I mean, I cast a wide net, I was like social work, some religious
Yeah.
ministry, but I'm not religious. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
different options of things that would fulfill that purpose. And then I found, because I was very much trying to pull out of my head and more listen to my heart. Um, i i was trying to follow my passion a bit, and so I sort of was tuning into the fact that I was like got spend a weekend like doing internet searches on medicine and doing medicine as a mature student, and like reading all these bulletin boards about experiences around that. And I was just like looking up more and more stuff on medicine. I was like, okay, I'm not doing this on any of the other areas.
Yeah.
you know, Something here. And Leslie was so fantastic at just cultivating that sense of curiosity and openness
Yeah.
rather than feeling like I had to commit to something,
Yeah.
which felt really scary to
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
leave this career behind, which I'm successful in, and
Yeah.
make a change,
Yeah.
which is a huge another investment in
Yeah.
time and money. And
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
that was such a centering experience in my life to be able to articulate that, because it is my true north.
Yeah.
And so many, I mean, it was such a it, wonderful time of introspection and conversations with people around what does it mean to have a talent or a
Yeah.
gift? What
Yeah.
is a natural gift?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that really something? What does that look like?
Yeah.
It sounds like you went through a similar experience.
Very, very much so. I mean, it's so interesting. And so you talked a lot about the hows, like religion and different ways of
Mhm,
actualizing that. I went through something very similar. Do I actually want to be a teacher?
mhm,
Should I continue to be a business leader, but actually be much more active in mentorship and do
mhm,
that more formally? Um, should I just become a coach?
mhm.
And the truth is, I haven't been able to pick. I'm actually afraid, I think, of picking any one, because I'm also worried that if I pick one, I won't be able to have the full impact I want to have doing that one thing. I I really do hope that everybody is in a position at some point in their life to spend time doing that and achieving kind of their true calling, what they were here to do, because there's nothing better than getting to that place.
Well, and I even think what I'm hopeful for is that people think about it.
Right.
I don't know that a lot of people give themselves permission to
Right.
actually really think about it and spend time trying to articulate it,
Yeah.
because I feel like it's only then that you can actually actualize it, as you say.
Yeah.
But if you
Right.
haven't gone through the process of being able to articulate it, and I do see people who are chronically unsatisfied, and I wonder if perhaps they took the time um, thinking more about
Absolutely.
what
Absolutely.
impact they're wanting to make, and what they bring to the table that's unique, if they would be more satisfied in their lives.
Absolutely. Those people, if they just had somebody in their life that would ask them just a few really deep questions. To believe being a coach is, I do completely agree that it takes somebody that has got to that point in their life where they want to do it, and
Yeah.
they're willing to invest themselves, because when you get, as a coach, you get to an agreement with a client. Basically, part of the agreement is that you're actually going to put yourself into this.
Yeah.
You're going to trust me. I'm going to ask you difficult questions and you are going to answer them. And if you're not willing to do that, then not worth you spending the money on a coaching relationship. So I
Yeah.
agree with that. I also think, and it's probably just me because I'm a coach, I do believe that people, whether it's a good friend or a family member or an external person that's objective, that will ask you the difficult questions to force you to think about things that you would otherwise just sweep under the rug or not spend time in, I think
Mhm.
it can be extremely valuable. I certainly had that in my experience. I love it when I talk to somebody and I get to that, I see that look in their eye where they've had this realization about something. Like there's no greater joy, which is interesting because I was just talking to a person last week, talk about cynics in your life. She said to me, I was having a conversation on purpose with her, and she said, people talk about purpose and it's always about altruism and helping other people and making an impact in the world. I was trying to feeling a little bit defensive as she was saying it because I was like, are you questioning my purpose? And she said, but there's got to be something in it for you. Like, you're not just doing this to be good to the world and help this person, help them find their purpose. There's got to be something in it for you. And she forced me to really think about it. And she was absolutely right. Of course, I'm doing it because it makes me happy. And
Yeah.
as we got into the conversation, I realized that when somebody says to me that I did this because you helped me find this path, it makes me feel like I mattered, right? It makes me feel like there's value in me being on this earth. So it's really self-validation. So the idea of actually helping somebody, finding people like you, helping them in their most difficult time in their life is really a statement to yourself that I matter, right?
Mhm.
And so actually it is quite selfish to achieve your purpose.
The whole point is trying to find something that is satisfying.
Yeah,
And but it I think that it is when you're making feeling like you're making a contribution that is additive rather than
right.
taking away. That is when we have those times of satisfaction and ultimately, where the purpose can be found.
Yeah. So true. So true. I
Oh,
lost
well.
myself in this conversation, Jody. That was really great. I hope I didn't talk your ear off.
Oh, no, I'm so delighted to hear everything. And can I just hear, how is Narissa?
Oh, she's doing good. She's doing really good. She's working in the school system. She's working for the Ottawa Catholic School Board. I watch her, and clearly there's something about her working with young people and helping them through that period in their lives. So she seems to be doing really well, enjoying that. She is the reason that our family works. So thank goodness for her that she runs our lives and helps shape our children. No, she's doing really well. I
What a
think.
wonderful partnership, really.
Yeah, no, I'm very lucky. I don't know. I hope she says she's lucky. I don't know, but I feel very lucky. I feel very lucky. Jody, thank you for seeking
Oh,
seeking
thank
this and for being
you so
curious
much.
and giving me an opportunity to kind of just dump a lot of stuff about my life to you. I appreciate it.
Share, not
Share,
dump, share.
share. Okay. All right. Take care. I'm so glad to be in touch again. So let's keep that alive.
Yes, me too.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, there you go. Now you know a lot more about me. I'm really grateful that Jody also offered to summarize her key insights and takeaways from the conversation because it would have been a little bit weird for me to do that. So here she is. It was great to have the opportunity to review my conversation with Shaquille and think more about what I was taking away from that conversation, really. And there were a few things. I think I really heard a theme about being authentic to yourself, and Shaquille, time and again, really put his family in the center of his decision making. And that self awareness of his top priority allowed him to make decision that really aligned with his authentic self, and I thought that was really powerful. Also, I heard him talk about a couple situations where he sort of quickly said no, but then was encouraged to maybe pause and not say no right away, but think about it. And I could relate to that, and thinking about just how exploring a opportunity doesn't mean that you're committing to anything, and it actually allows you to get the full sense of the depth of the opportunity and what it may mean to you before quickly saying no and not even peeking down what that path may entail. I think that that's easy for when we're both comfortable in the work that we're doing, but also maybe when we're feeling a bit fearful of change or what an opportunity may mean, especially if it means
a big leap. I think both Shaquille and I really enjoyed talking about purpose, and I really enjoyed that part of our conversation, especially spending time thinking about your purpose, I think, and how your talents can best be used to contribute something to the world in a way that energizes you versus drains you was a takeaway. Specifically thinking of it in that way with Shaquille, and I love that he's working with people to do that work, because I do think that is the great work of our lives. And then I really enjoyed his analogy of the challenge of leadership being in balancing the courage of Hercules and the empathy of Buddha. And I will definitely look for opportunities to bring that into my own leadership experience and thinking. So thanks again, Shaquille, for that great conversation. I look forward to having more over the coming months and years. Take care.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, or share it. I want to say thank you to one of my favorite bands, Late Night Conversations, for sharing their song Chaos with me and letting me use it in this episode. You can learn more about them on Instagram at LNC Connected. And here's more of their song Chaos to take you out.
I can't flow like this no more. No, I can't make it. Far behind my eyes. Mediation, suffocation, it'll break me. Information in disguise. But when your eyes finally found mine, you were there, but I'm defined by the chaos in my mind. I believe what I perceive is a weave tearing at the seams, and I wonder what's behind. And my ears are bleeding, and the reason isn't the logic of the season, taking the pleasing from my soul and leaving me to die. And I feel the lacing, LNC like racing on stationary animation, taking me